Hi, I just thought I'd talk a bit today about one of my favourite films and favourite series of films growing up. Big fan of science fiction, and of course, one of the all-time classics is Planet of the Apes. So you got a series of five films initially. Then there was a short-lived TV show. Then there was an animated TV show, which I think some of us may vaguely remember from when we were kids. You got a 2001 remake. And then reboots coming in 2011, 14 and 17 for a new trilogy, which we'll come to, I suppose, in part two. So original Planet of the Apes based on the novel Monkey Planet by Pierre Buell. And the script was written by the great Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone. And probably its first two... There's several factors which I think make the film great. First port of call is casting of Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston's not the best screen actor, but he's got amazing physical presence. Obviously, he was known from Epics, and he was someone you could cast physically. Obviously, later on in the film, he's virtually in a loincloth. His whole body image and his way of delivering dialogue and things like that just works perfectly. So that's the initial point, and then you got the superb makeup by John Chambers, which set groundbreaking. Obviously it inspired guys like Rick Baker, Dick Miller, Rob Bottin. Great feats in makeup we get now. The Planet of the Apes masks still look incredible and still work so well. The other casting's really good. Kim Hunt, Roddy McDowall. Then two, not unsung hero, but Jerry Goldsmith's experimental score, absolutely incredible. I mean, Goldsmith's kind of more orchestral later on, but in the 60s he's more experimental. He does a weird score for Seconds, the John Frankenheimer film. His score, I think he does the score for Freud, the John Huston film. Very unusual. But he goes all out unusual using percussive effects in Planet of the Apes to suggest another planet and some otherworldly. And it's superb. And then finally, the true unsung hero, the director Franklin J. Schaffner. So Schaffner's, he's a director who gets forgotten about, really. He's not an auteur. And his career tailed off after a time, but there's no doubt he made two cracking films, Planet of the Apes being one, and the other being Papillon, the Steve McQueen, Dustin Hoffman vehicle from 1973, which is a really great adventure film and one of the great prison films, which we'll maybe do a prison top 10 sometime. But I think he made a film with Charlton Heston called The Warlord back in 1965, and then a film I enjoyed as a kid. Again, I hadn't seen it for years, and when you watch it again, it's cheesy, but it's The Double Man with Yul Brynner, which is the top spy film, basically. Yul Brynner, the Soviets create a clone with plastic surgery. The end of the film, you have to work out which is the real Yul Brynner. The ending's great. So Franklin J. Schaffner was one of those directors. He had a he's a journeyman, but in his journey he made a couple of one out and out classic, Planet of the Apes, and a very good film in Papillon. He also does The Boys from Brazil, which is quite a fun conspiracy thriller, which might be another top 10 sometime. So Planet of the Apes, yeah, great casting. Maurice Evans as Dr. Zaius, brilliant. Roddy McDowall, superb, as previously mentioned. Love Linda Harrison as Nova, and she'll kind of appear in another guys later. But I like the way it explores society, really. The apes have kind of fallen into the same trap as humans. They've got a class-based society. The orangutans are the government. The chimpanzees are kind of scientists. The intelligentsia are the middle class, and the gorillas are kind of working class. It explores like the political situation in America at the time. In a lot of ways, the depiction of them chasing down the humans, parallels with Vietnam. Then you've got Taylor protesting for his human rights, and that's mirroring the civil rights movement in America at the time. You've got to remember 1968, it's kicking off in America. We can't imagine, we think it's kicking off now around the world, but starting with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, by 68 you've got the Kent State University riots, or maybe that's 69, you've got Woodstock, Altamont, You've had the civil rights marches in Selma, the assassination of Martin Luther King. By this point, Robert Kennedy. And this film, in its own way, kind of captures that little melting pot of the times. I think it starts stunning. I love the way Charlton Heston's character's gone into space because he's just disgusted with humanity. And sometimes I feel like that now. But it's great, and you've got the opening. He crashes in 25th century. There's that horrible image of the female astronaut. You may have had feelings for. She's died in space. And he escapes with the other two astronauts, and they're on this alien planet, or so we think. And the initial shock that it's a society of apes who talk and stuff like that is still a wonder to behold. As it goes along, the first time you watch it when you're younger, it's only in the final denouement that you realise that they're on Earth. And that's one of the great joys of cinema itself, is the end of Planet of the Apes. I've just ruined it for people who've not seen it, but anyway, you should have seen it, and you shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen Planet of the Apes. But, when you're a kid, you know what the Statue of Liberty is. You could be 4 or 5. It's just one of those things. So the second you see that, up until that point, an older person will probably spot the clues when they go to the caves and they see the glasses and they see that human civilization's been there. But it's that moment you see a Statue of Liberty and you go like, wow, it's Earth. And it still stays with me. It's still just a stunning image. You can go to that beach, I forget where it's filmed, but pilgrims will go there. And really Dr. Zaius' character, the reason why he wants to, suppress Taylor is he sees what humans have done and humans have failed. And he thinks his ape society can be a success, but it's falling into a pattern, of the early stages of human society. And I think the inference is it will come have problems. So Planet of the Apes, I'm just looking down here. The budget, it was just under $6 million. North American gross $33.4 million. It was back in 1968. Put that into context, you're probably talking a multiplier of about, let me think, 7, 8. Yeah. If you released it now, it's going to gross, north of 200, heading up to $250 million probably. So, a big success for an intelligent science fiction film. Although it's got action and adventure and it's cast a big star who's known for those parts. It's still a great success. I'm just recalling the sequence where he's in a museum and it's got, artifacts, and again, it's that way, it's kind of mirroring colonialism, I suppose, the way other human civilizations have gone to other countries, to other continents, and they've brought back the artifacts and, taken things from other cultures. So it's great in that way. I think the Mark Kermode says, the Planet 8 films taught him everything about what's going on in society at that time. So cool. All-time classic. So basically it's a hit and they decide to make a sequel, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. So Charlton Heston appears in this in a supporting role, and they cast James Franciscus as the kind of astronaut who's gone looking for Taylor, the Charlton Heston character. I think the problem with this film is it can't work out what it wants to do, so it kind of makes a weird sequel to Planet of the Apes. Maurice Evans is back, Nova's back, Kim Hunter's back. Roddy McDowell, I can't remember what happens with this. This is the one I know least well. It was never on TV when I was a kid. They always showed the other ones. I didn't watch it till later. But basically there's humans who've been infected by the nuclear war by a nuclear war and live underground beneath the Planet of the Apes, and they worship a nuclear weapon, so it's got like a weird cult thing. The end of the film, Charlton Heston blows up the world. He does his not his damn or hell, but he does another sacrifice thing that he does at the end of his science fiction films. It goes further into the Forbidden Zone, this one, and that's where they, if you remember, at the end of Planet of the Apes, Taylor travels further into the Forbidden Zone. He kind of, Dr. Zaius at some point leaves him to go down the beach, and off he goes with Nova. and that's where they discover these other humans. I didn't realise it, but a little story. Basically, I went on holiday in America in 1998 with Gary, I'm not on Facebook Foley, who does the thumbnails for this. And we went to Lake Tahoe. We got our motel for $29 a night. It was very nice. And we were waiting to go out, and there was a Planet of the Apes marathon on all day on one of the channels, and Roddy McDowell was introducing it. And whenever we went back to the motel at various points, it'd be some other point in the Planet of the Apes marathon, so we switched on the TV. Oh, Roddy McDowell, he's on again. It was great. But an interesting point in that was they're talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and they wanted to cut the budget. Now, this budget is $4.7 million. So obviously they're only giving Charlton Heston a supporting role, but it was the makeup. So John Chambers' makeup for the main characters, they still did the full Monty, but to save money they used cheap masks. And if you look at shots of the apes, when you've got several of them, the ones in the background just have pretty poor masks over them. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of the studio, I suppose, realised they had a kind of exploitation niche thing on the hands, so they decided to reduce the budget, and that kind of shows in the film. So it's kind of weird. It's the weakest for me, although some people wouldn't agree with that, of the five. The direction as well, it's by a guy called Ted Post, so it's kind of more TV movie style direction. It doesn't have the cinematic flourish that I do generally think Frank and Jay Safran are brought to it. Quickly about John Chambers, he actually features in the film Argo. So he had contacts with the FBI, and in the film Argo, the Ben Affleck film, it's about sending in a team of agents under the guise of being movie makers and location scouting in Iran, and John Chambers was the consultant to them to help them achieve that. Obviously that was all hidden for years, so it's quite a weird story. The guy did the makeup, the Planet of the Apes, was part of this espionage plot to get American citizens out of Iran when the revolution happened. Okay, so the next film's Escape from Planet Apes, and I think this is really good. So basically, Charlton Heston blows up the world because he's damned them all to hell at the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Roddy McDowell, who's now back, and Kim Hunter's character, Cornelius, and is it Zaya? Zira, sorry, and Dr. Milo Salminio, we'll come to him. They escape into Taylor's spaceship, and they go back in time, so they land on Earth back in the 1970s. There's a great sequence at the start. You know, the astronauts get out of the thing, and the humans take the helmets off, and it's the apes. So this is good. Salminio quickly, like, his character gets killed later on, but he was Oscar nominated for Rebel Without a Cause, I think Exodus, but he was sadly stabbed to death, murdered later in life, but he's great in Rebel Without a Cause. But anyway, I digress. So I've always really liked this one. Basically the authorities, kind of question them, and they're kind of sort of paraded a little bit on the kind of celeb circuit, but then kind of suspicion, I think there's a bit of a go on a chat show and stuff like that, but then prejudice and suspicion comes over them, and the CIA, the dodgy government agents basically have other plans for them. At the end, it was shocked us, she has a child, and they shoot Roddy McDowell's character, and he kind of gargled up blood and fell to his death. I always remember that being pretty dodgy. I think he shoots the main human character. Now, who's that by? Eric Braeden, yes, that's it. He's a German-born soap actor, but he's pretty effective in it. And Ricardo Montalban's in it as well. And if I'm honest, I forget how they come across his character, but that'll play a key plot point, because they switch Zira's child and Cornelius' child for a regular chimpanzee, and he takes the other chimp, which is their son, and obviously this will have the final scene is the little chimp, baby chimp going, "Mama!" He has the power of speech. So it's a good one. This budget $2 million, so you consider really dropping it. It's directed by Don Taylor. He's just again a journeyman director, but it's better directed than the job Ted Post did with the second film. And they did really well on this $12.3 million gross and $2 million budget. So they found the level with these. They're, it's kind of like the same thing as people do horror sequels, They keep the budgets down and get the profit. So that leads to Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and basically the chimpanzees, there's been a plague, a pandemic from a space-borne disease that's wiped out dogs and cats, and now chimpanzees are household pets. But the baby has grown up, and now it's Caesar. So this is really important. This is Conquest Planet of the Apes is the kind of the source material for what will come later, which is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which involves Caesar. So Caesar is the descendant, from when the apes have gone back in time to Earth, and so on. Different plot points coming up with the new films, but basically, they're kind of like slaves, really. There's an African American character who sympathises with the apes' position. Basically, as the film goes on, Caesar leads the revolution, and it's interesting, this one wasn't as well received at the time. Again, the budget's even low, $1.7 million. And remember, this one is kind of filmed on location. It's filmed in sort of concrete tower block areas and things like that. It's trying to look futuristic. J. Lee Thompson directed this. Now, J. Lee Thompson did Guns and Navarone. He had a really strong British film career. Got Oscar nominated for Guns and Navarone, and then he ended up doing various Gregory Peck films, and it's weird, he just didn't have, after Guns and Navarone, he didn't have a great run. He just did some dodgy stuff, and all the way through the 70s he kind of did Charles Bronson and stuff like that. I always wondered what it'd be like if he did a Bond film, to be honest. He probably could have done with a Bond film sometime in the 70s, but it's pretty well made. I quite like this one. I don't like it as much as Escape. At the moment, I would say Planet of the Apes #1, Escape 2, Conquest 3. And I'm just trying to remember the plot of this, because I've not seen it for many years. But anyway, yeah, it explores, the civil rights, the history of America, really, with slavery, and the respect that the apes are used in this way. Next one was Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and this Battle for the Planet of the Apes, sorry. This tends to get kind of slagged, but I always like this. Basically, you've got humans in this, so it's projecting further into the future. There's been, it says Tom Plash about the 21st century. It's got a little, John Huston appears in the start, actually. There's something called a lawgiver, so he's telling the story to young apes of what happened. So basically, after Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, there's been an ape revolution, they've developed a language, humans have died out by disease, there's been nuclear activity. In this, they have to go into like Forbidden City to retrieve some archives, as Caesar travels in there. And the apes and humans are working together. There's a team of humans who work with the apes, but there's kind of mutant humans in the city. But what's interesting in this, Caesar's son gets murdered by another ape, one of the guerrilla military apes. And I'm trying to remember which actor, it's Claude Akins, a well-known American character actor. It's got a great ending where Caesar kills him, but it's got a rule: ape shall not kill ape. So this one, the budget's down again. Box office budget 1.7 million, box office 8.8 million. It's good. What you've seen, it's got Lou Ayres in it as well as one of the apes. Lou Ayres from All Quiet on the Western Front and Salem's Lot. So there you go. But it's funky. I mean, if it was the first 5 films, I would mark them this. Planet of the Apes, it's a 9, 10 out of 10. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, 5. Escape from Planet of the Apes, I'd probably give it an 8, actually. I think it's really good. Conquest is 6, 7. This one's kind of a 6, 7. The fun, funky films and the good fun science fiction. First one's a classic. If you like the Planet of the Apes series, they're good. This has got a worse reviews. It's only got 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I've always liked it. And that's kind of like the first 5 Planet of the Apes. So, part 2, we'll be looking at the Tim Burton remake, and then the new trilogy, which has, got me, and I find very exciting. Cheers.